It's not called The Hungry Caterpillar, it's called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. They don't write stories about mildly peckish lepidopterans. Sort your life out.
Hi, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, this is the 4th video, and that means that you actually care about watching these things, so thank you. Yeah. So in this video I am going to be talking about the emotions tag, that's what I'm doing, which I saw on Joe's video over at Bookseller Ravings. He didn't tag me in it because I wasn't on YouTube at the time. I'm pretty sure it's not personal. Is it personal? Do you hate me, Joe? Do you? Why? Anyway, I thought it would be a really good tag for me to do because I have a large amount of emotions about various things. Mostly books, but also television shows and films and plants and animals and my socks. Normally, if one of them is on its own and doesn't have another one, I get quite sad. It's missing its partner. So, here we go. The first emotion on the list is happy. So I want me to pick a book that makes me happy. And who else could it be but Terry Pratchett? Sorcery was probably the first Terry Pratchett book that I read. It is the story of Rincewind and a sorcerer, which sounds bizarre, but if you read Terry Pratchett, you probably know all about it. I actually traded about 10 Goosebumps books for this at my school book fair when I was about 11 years old. And it had swearing in it, and I was like, can I read this? Oh my god. Pratchett is hilarious. Possibly the funniest author I've ever read, because he is able to mock fantasy from a place of clear love and respect for the genre, but he knows when it's being ridiculous, and I have never cried with laughter repeatedly in the same way as I have reading Discworld novels. They're superb. Sorcery is a great starting point. This or Guards, I would say, are brilliant places to start reading Pratchett. The next emotion on the list is sad, which was quite hard actually because lots of books do make me cry. I'm quite well known for bursting into tears over books, so I thought of one of the first books that I really remember having an emotional kind of reaction to, and that is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I read this book when I was about 15 or 16, and I read it in one sitting. I think I finished it about 3 o'clock in the morning in absolute floods of tears. It's a superb book. It's quite a famous YA novel now, although when I read it, it was considered an adult novel. And it is beautiful, and it is filled with angst, and it is kind of pretentious in places, but that's exactly where I was at when I read it. So for me, I felt like it connected with me, which I'm sure it is connected with millions of people around the world now, making me not a special little snowflake, but still beautiful. Still makes me cry now. I reread it probably once every couple of years, and still absolutely breaks my heart. And the film wasn't bad, which is a rarity, but I think probably because Stephen Chbosky wrote the film and directed that as well. Okay, the next emotion on the list is a book that made me angry. Now, the book that made me angry is Asking for It by Louise O'Neill, which I lent to my mum because we're a big happy family and I like to recommend her books about victim blaming and rape culture. So I haven't got it with me, but I do have Louise O'Neill's first book, which is Only Ever Yours, which also looks at how women are treated in culture. It uses a dystopian lens to kind of distort how young women are treated and how they are taught to feel about themselves and about each other. Honestly, it's not distorting much. It's pretty close to the bone. Asking for It is even more intense and even more accurate because it's a contemporary setting. Both books made me just outraged with how accurate they are, with how blasé society is about these issues. I can feel myself getting quite wound up about it now because it's 2016 and we shouldn't be behaving like this anymore. So they're very important books. They are hard reads, but I cannot understate how important they are to read. I would recommend everyone give them a shot and do it with your mind open, I would say, definitely. The next emotion on the list is nostalgic, and most of the videos I've seen doing this tag have picked a book from their childhood that they feel nostalgic about, and I went for something a little bit different, and I have gone for Remix by Non Pratt, which is about two friends called Kaz and Ruby going to their first music festival together as teenagers. The reason this makes me so nostalgic is because I remember being that teenager. I remember going to my first music festival. I remember being so unbelievably excited. I was going with my best friend. It felt like the world was opening up in front of us, and music is probably my biggest passion in life. I am obsessed with it, and the way Non writes about it is just beautiful and absolutely perfect. She just totally gets it. And also she has references to all kinds of things in the book that just made me really, really happy. There is a moment where Ruby goes, "Oh, my name's Ruby, you know, like Ruby Soho," the Rancid song, and that was awesome. There's a chapter called Dark Blue, which is a Jack's Mannequin song. It's just perfect, and it has one of my favourite passages in it about music. For Kaz, it's as much about her head as it is her heart. A song isn't just a sound that tugs at her heartstrings. For Kaz, it's all notes and keys, melodies and harmonies, rhythms and patterns. She hears what there is, and she hears how it's made. Music is a magic that flows through her body like blood. She's the last to speak up in class, girl voted least likely to say boo to a goose. But like last night, get music to do the asking, and Kaz will show the world her soul. Also, my copy of Remix is signed, and it says, "For Darren, who loves the cockwomble." Okay, the next emotion on the list is scared. Now, I am a massive fan of horror as a genre. Ever since I was very small, I have liked ghost stories and things that have scared me. It's what I now attempt to write is horror, or at least quite dark stuff. So there was a lot of choices open to me, and I have gone with The Three by Sarah Lotz, which is a book about 4 plane crashes that happen simultaneously across the globe, and there are 3 survivors of those 4 plane crashes. All 3 of them are children, and all 3 of them have survived but have come back fundamentally wrong. There is something deeper and darker and otherworldly about these children, and they become the focus of an almost kind of cult-like obsession by the world's media, and the story is told as if it is a journalistic report of these crashes and the months that followed, and it includes first-person reports of the children's families and things like that, who can sense something unsettling about these children, and they can't put their finger on why. And at one point I threw it across the room because I just went, nope, not in a bad way, in a nope, I can't read this, it's like 2 a.m, and no, not anymore, because I'll never sleep. The next emotion on the list is surprised, and the book I have gone with is Will Hill's Department 19, which was actually one of the first proofs, in fact the first proof I requested as a bookseller from the lovely people at HarperCollins, and I was kind of expecting a bit of a trashy vampire fiction. Twilight had just really hit the mainstream, and I thought, I'll give it a go, but I'm not expecting big things. And what I got was an action-packed very violent kind of supernatural action story about a group of kind of military operatives who are policed with keeping vampires secret and under control around the world. It spanned into a 5-long series that is one of my favourite YA series. It is steeped in lore and history, and his attention to kind of classic literature, especially obviously Bram Stoker but also Mary Shelley, is done with love and care and attention, and they're just really good fun. I raced through them. They're pretty epic. They've got some real kind of moments of fist in the air. They just make you feel good, and they are superbly gothic. Okay, emotion number 7 is disappointed, and for that one it's got to be Everything by Nicola Yoon. I really liked the idea of this book. I liked the idea of a girl who has an autoimmune disorder that means she can't leave the house, falling in love. I thought that was a really sweet idea. I thought that they could do something really, really well with it. But unfortunately, I think I had it pegged from about 5 pages in, and it didn't do anything that I didn't expect it to. It was a bit wordy and it was a little bit John Greeny for me, which I have no issues with John Green on the whole, but he's definitely not an author that I really absolutely love, although Looking for Alaska is great. But basically, if I tell you that she's kept in the house by her mother, who is a doctor, because she is allergic to the world. If she goes outside, she could die. Her father and her brother were killed in a car accident when she was very, very young. I think you can probably peg the ending from that. If you can't, maybe you'll enjoy this book more than I did. So yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad book, I'm just saying that it didn't do anything for me. Her writing style is really pretty, though, to be fair. Right, next emotion on the list is Distressed, and there was only really one book that came to mind when I thought of the emotion of Distressed. Oh my god, this book is brilliant and bleak and harrowing and superb. It is The Bunker Diary by Kevin Brooks, which won the Carnegie Medal for Children's Fiction not last year but the year before, and it is about a boy who is captured. He lives on the streets and he is kidnapped and wakes up in a bunker, and he lives there with 6 other people of a variety of ages. And it is told through his diary entries, because that's the only thing that they are left with in this bunker, while somebody, whoever owns the bunker, sends them food but also toys with them by doing things like turning the heating off or not turning the lights on one day so they have no idea what time it is, or by gassing them all and knocking them out, and then taking all of their possessions and food and leaving them cold and naked in this bunker. It's a psychological thriller. It examines what happens when we are truly destitute and have nothing left to turn to, and has one of the most just soul-destroying endings I have read in a book. So yeah, not for the faint of hearts, but probably worth reading if you like that kind of thing. It is just something else. And the final emotion on the list, and then I'll shut up, is Confused. So not a book from me this time, but one that did make me confused. Graphic novel, The Wicked and the Divine, by, I should have already checked this, by Gillian McKelvey and Wilson Cowles. Beautifully drawn and a wonderful premise. The idea behind it is that every 90 years a handful of gods arrive back on Earth. They have 2 years on Earth in which they are worshipped like stars. They are seen as kind of in the same way that we worship celebrities in our culture, and it very cleverly pulled at these threads and ideas of kind of how we look at celebrity culture. It's brilliantly diverse in its cast, the artwork is gorgeous, but I felt like it dropped you into the story with a background knowledge in what was going on, which creates a sense of mythology, sure, but also meant that I was just really confused. They would start going on about gods that I'm pretty sure they hadn't brought up before, and I just wasn't sure what was going on. I'm flicking through it now because the artwork is super pretty, to be fair. Try and find an example. Come on. Yeah, just very kind of classic comic book artwork. I normally like something a little bit scratchier and inkier than this, but it's beautiful, and if you can get on board with it, it's probably fantastic. I know plenty of people whose opinions I have a great deal of respect for who absolutely adore it. I just got confused. I think I'm just dumb. I think that's probably it. I think I'm not smart enough for it. That's normally my go-to excuse. Okay, that's it for this video. If you watched, thank you very much. If you didn't watch, how did you get this far to see this message? And feel free to subscribe is, I believe, the word I was trying to go for there, to me, and you can watch my other videos. They're on there and they're not terrible. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll put the link for that in the description if you like to hear complete nonsense. It's a bit like this but without my stupid voice. And the really worrying question is, if I live on my own, who was I arguing with earlier about the very hungry caterpillar? He's very hungry. He's not hungry, he's exceptionally hungry. He's the very hungry caterpillar.